listen to my radio show on Air America Radio, you probably know that I have a special place in my heart for a man who some people call John Bolton, a man who I call John Bolton, the worst diplomat in the whole world.
The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question for the United States is what's in our national interest. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry, but that is the fact.
Would you hire that man to be your envoy to the United Nations? Your emissary to the international community? No, of course you wouldn't. And neither would the new Democratic Senate. And that's why Mr. Bolton is out of a job. Disgraced, former, horrifically bad diplomat, followed around by failure the way stink follows poop. Let's ask him for an opinion. CNN Late Edition this weekend.
The Iraq situation, from your assessment 4 years into this war, is what?
I think there are analytically two questions that you have to ask about Iraq. The first is, should we have overthrown Saddam Hussein? I think the answer to that, based on all we know now, remains unquestionably yes. That was the right thing to do.
Even though he didn't have stockpiles of weapons of mass destruction?
He himself and his regime were the threat to international peace and security.
Okay. Catch that argument? It wasn't the weapons that were a threat. It was Saddam himself personally was a threat. He himself, it was never about those weapons. Who said anything about weapons?
But the president, with all due respect, and the Secretary of State, when he went to the UN Security Council, they gave the impression there was an imminent threat from Saddam Hussein, that he was about to use those stockpiles in an awful way.
No, sir. In the 2003 State of the Union message, the president took on the imminent threat argument and rejected it. He said, some have argued that the threat must be imminent, but since when have terrorists or dictators ever given advance notice of their intentions? It was the regime that constituted the threat.
Okay. Don't you remember being sold the war that way? Could you imagine if John Bolton were right? That would mean that we were told we had to invade Iraq because Saddam himself, Saddam personally, was a personal threat to America. It had nothing to do with weapons. It was all Saddam himself. Saddam personally was going to swim over here, maybe? Or airlift himself? I don't know. He was going to come over here personally and kick some American butt. It would have been kind of awesome if Bush had made the case for war that way, if the State of the Union 2003 was all about the threat posed by this mustachioed one-man Saddam army. But you know what? We have tape of these things. It didn't actually happen like that.
Uranium from Africa.
See, when you go to a guy like John Bolton for truth, sometimes you get something not so truthy. Again, I wouldn't ask this guy's opinion about cheese right now, let alone his opinion on the war. Why is John Bolton everywhere right now? Why are we asking him anything? We didn't believe what he said when he was UN ambassador. Now that he's not that anymore and who knows what he is, why is he everywhere? Can't we just let this guy rest? This is the Rachel Maddow Podthing.